Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar with Dr. Philip Adu, who is going to talk to us about document analysis. So we are delighted to have him here, and thanks to all the students who were able to join us live. And of course, we're recording this for those who are not able to make it live so they can also benefit. So Philip, I'm going to turn it over to you, and maybe you want to just share a brief bio because you'll be doing a series of webinars for us. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about your background, and then you can jump right into the content, that would be terrific.
Thank you, Christine, for giving me this opportunity. As you know, my name is Philip Adu. I'm methodology expert at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I've been providing support to students in terms of their methodology for over 7 years. I started this job immediately I finished my dissertation. And besides that too, I also have written a book on qualitative analysis to help students to, analyze their data in a systematic order. And so I also provide webinars to students or institutions outside where I work, and to help them to successfully finish their dissertation. So that's briefly what I focus on. In terms of research, I'm moving closer to learning more about, using software to automatically analyze qualitative data, because I realize that there's a lot of data online where it's going to be very difficult for you to manually analyze. So how can we use software to do that for you? So that's what my area is. I'm learning about it. I've written an article on that, and it will be coming out very soon concerning, using some software to automatically analyze your qualitative data if you have so much data that you cannot manually analyze. So this is the basic information. If you want to know more about me, you can, search me on LinkedIn, and you can also follow me on LinkedIn, because I always try to provide resources to students to help them to learn about qualitative research and also maybe analyzing their data. So that's just the basic information about me. So for this presentation, can you see my screen? I just want to make sure that everybody sees before I start. So, so this is how I do my presentation. I wanted to, most of the time, to be more of student asking me questions, so this means that you can stop me anywhere to ask me a question. You can type in your question, and I hope Christine will be able to will read it for me so that I'll be able to address. So you can stop anywhere. You can ask me about this presentation or anything related to qualitative research and analysis. I will be happy to address them for you. So today I'm going to talk about analyzing documents. And as you know, for your dissertation, you're going to do program evaluation. So my presentation will be focusing on analyzing document within program evaluation. And so let me start by giving you information about what document is all about. I think you already know. So within program evaluation or program development, so document is, I can say that they are all materials that are generated as stakeholders are developing the program and also implementing the program. So as they are developing the program, maybe they can do needs assessment. They have documentation of how they did the needs assessment. They have the results there for you. They organize meetings. They can they can document the meeting. They email each other, maybe job description about the program staff. All these information are documented. So we can see that there's going to be a lot of document for you as an evaluator, to go through and choose the one that you think will help you to maybe address your evaluation question or meet the purpose of your evaluation. And so I'll go through the varieties of documents. So in terms of types, we have personal document, we have program or policy documents. We have organizational documents, right? So the personal one can be email, like, you know, you send to the people, the program coordinators or program staff send email to each other. Also, it can be a job description. It could be also organizational reports will fall under the organizational documents. So, and newsletters about the program, an announcement related to the program. So all these are the document types. But in terms of the kinds, it can be in the form of a video, right? So if, let's say, we are program staff, right? And we are recording this kind of conversation, that could be a document that you as an evaluator can, you know, take a look at it and then analyze to help you to meet the purpose of your evaluation. It could be audio, it could be visual, it could be electronic, it could be hard copy, it could be an artifact. So these are the examples for you. And I think that, you know, I provided these examples to help you to think about, okay, for you, as you are thinking about doing evaluation, what kind of document do you have to look at or do you have to look for to help you to finish the evaluation? So in terms of the timing, most of the time, the documents are developed before the evaluation, right? So one example is that maybe you want to review maybe a syllabus, right? So most of the time, the syllabus was developed before you even have a, you know, thinking of, you know, have a thinking of carrying out an evaluation. And it could be also developed during the evaluation, especially sometimes you can ask participants or the beneficiaries of the evaluation to take notes about the experience, right? So that could be called document. So it could be a course evaluation, it could be course grades. So these are an example. And the last one I want to talk about is availability, right? Some of the document could be privately available, like emails, where sometimes you have to, you know, seek permission from the person because the private information, private conversation, but it's related to, they are related to the program. It could be publicly available. Maybe you go to the program website to get all the information. And in terms of accessibility, sometimes some of the program, the document, you have to seek an approval from the stakeholders, right? You cannot not just go and gather the document and start analyzing. You have to have a conversation and find out, is it okay to take this document and analyze? Sometimes it might be publicly available, but you still have to seek for permission from the stakeholders, right? So you have to think about all these things as you look for documents to analyze. Last one is the features. It could be quantitative, right? So like test scores, right? It could be quantitative, it could be qualitative data, it could be mixed. So this is also an information you have to be aware of as you think about analyzing document. So then what is document analysis? So I always think about document analysis as, you know, you are summarizing the document, right? You are summarizing the data that you have collected and then presenting that information to help you to address your evaluation question. But in terms of summarizing, you have to do it such a way that people will believe what you found. So you have to be transparent as you are doing the summary, right? So you have to think about summarizing. You try to make sense or interpret the document, thinking with your research question in mind. And then you have to make the process so transparent that people will not doubt what you found. So that's all about document analysis. So why do we have to do document analysis? I think that you have to, let me go back here. Let me put, okay. So why you have to, so first of all, sometimes you may want to evaluate a program, but you don't have all the knowledge about the program, right? So sometimes you have to understand the program before you evaluate. So this means that you have to, collect documents and then try to, get a very good understanding of the program in terms of how they implement it, in terms of, the benefit of the program to the beneficiaries, and also maybe the benefit of the policy to beneficiaries or the stakeholders, right? So if you want to understand the program, it's very good to also do document analysis. Sometimes you also want to develop a program theory or logic model, and you can use a document to do that. And sometimes also you want to make a decision in terms of the focus of the evaluation, whether you want to do summative evaluation, you want to do formative evaluation, you want to do developmental evaluation. The documents that are around will help you to make a decision. Sometimes too, you may do interviews, you may do give out surveys, but you also want other source of data to help you to better understand the findings. You can also analyze, collect, document, and analyze to help you to give more information to the findings that you have gotten from other sources. Lastly, sometimes you want to address your research question and then you realize that interview might not be the very good source, or focus group might not be, observation might not. So the only option is for you to, collect, document, and analyze. So these are the rationale behind developing documents.
Philip, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have our first question.
Yes.
The question is content analysis synonymous with document analysis?
I see, and I'm going to talk about it because content analysis is a strategy that you could use to analyze documents. So I see it as a data analysis strategy, right? It's just the same as thematic analysis. It's a data analysis strategy. The name content document analysis is just the fact that you are analyzing documents, right? You are looking for significant information and maybe coding them. But that kind of strategy, you could use content analysis to do that. You could use thematic analysis to do that. You could use theoretical analysis to do that, right? So I see content analysis as one of the strategies that you could use to analyze your document.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? You can, instead of typing, you can talk. So if you have a question, I'll be happy to address. Okay, so the next one, as I was talking about, we have, three main types of strategy that you could use in terms of document analysis. We have, content analysis, we have thematic analysis, and theoretical analysis. So the content analysis, let me start with the thematic analysis, is inductive process. So this means that you create the codes or themes as you go through the document, right? So that's why it's inductive, right? You create the themes or you create evidence based on what you are reading, right? Your understanding of the document. Or you make your own conclusion based on the understanding or as you go through the document, right? That's the inductive process. Deductive process is where you first create the themes or codes and then use the themes and code to comb through the data that you have. Right, so think about this way. You create containers. The containers could be themes, right? And you go through the data and then you identify significant information, you put it into this respective container, right? So that's the deductive process. And then the adaptive process is the combination of the inductive and then deductive. This means that you can first go through the data identify significant information, generate themes, right? And then you can also look at a theme that you generated and try to find out maybe whether there's a relationship between the themes, and then compare what you have found with new type of data, right? So it's like you're doing a little bit of inductive process and a little bit of deductive process. And most of the time, if you want to develop a theory, right, that is where you use the adaptive process or theoretical analysis. Besides these three, there are some types, strategies, but I just want to focus on the popular ones, right? And so in case you want to use them, you'll be able to use. And I think that, when it comes to analysis, when it depends on the book that you read, you get different types or varieties. Some even combine all the three to do the analysis. The most important thing is that the person is explaining to you how they arrive at their findings and give the rationale behind their decisions.
Philip, can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Would you be able to provide perhaps an example of or explain why you would choose one process over another, or an example of when one process might work better than another approach, depending on what you're looking for?
Okay, so for the content analysis, you normally do it where you already have an idea about what you are looking for, or you have a model or a theory that you want to see whether the data that you have is consistent with the theory that you have, right? So most of the time you use content analysis. Let's say you have a model that you say, okay, looking at this model, one example is you can create a logic model about a program, right? Then based on the logic model, you develop themes. And then you go through the data that you have or the document that you have to help you to encode them to help you to see whether the theory or the program theory that you have reflect the information that you have collected, right? So normally we do it when you already have an existing idea or a theory or a model, and you want to use the data to help you to either understand the theory or reflect what is in the data that you have. Sometimes doing that, you may make an adjustment to an existing model based on the data that you have. So, and thematic analysis is normally done when you have you don't have much information about what you're going to get. What is pushing you is your research question. So based on your research question, you look for document, and then each of the document, you look for relevant information that can directly or indirectly address the research question, and then you develop a label or a code or a theme that represent that significant information to help you to address the research question. So most of the time, thematic analysis is where you don't want to bring your own perception, past experience, past knowledge. Maybe example is that maybe you have received negative information about the program that you want to evaluate. And you don't want all these negative information to adversely affect your analysis. So you put all your past knowledge aside, you put all your biases aside and look at the data and let the data speak to you by creating codes from the data that you have, right? So that's where the thematic analysis comes. The last one is where, let's say you want to develop a theory. This kind of strategy is similar to how you analyze granite theory data, right? When you use a granite theory as a qualitative research approach and you want to analyze the data, that's how the process is. You want to, let's say, develop a theory to explain a behavior, an event, or a process. Then theoretical analysis would be the best way. Because what you're doing is that you go through the data, identify significant information, create themes for them. Find out the similarities between the themes, because you want to use the theme, the connection between the theme, to explain a process or an event. After proposing a theory, then you go back to the data and find out whether what you have proposed is consistent with the data that you have. Or we call it constant comparison analysis. You are comparing the data that you have to the theory that you have proposed, right? So that's how you can, the strategy that you can use to decide which one you want to do. Any other question?
I'll just share that when I did my dissertation, I actually used a content analysis as my framework. And what I did was actually looked at dissertations over time and using Boyer's scholarship framework, and then looking through it really exactly the way you just explained it. Look for certain, I could develop a coding form across maybe 20 variables. And then as I read each of the dissertations, some were yes, no, some were more theme-based. And so I think the way you just described it really is a really strong way to kind of utilize this tool. And so I thought the examples are great.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. And I think that, as you said, you did some yes and no, and you did some for theme. So we have quantitative content analysis and also qualitative content analysis. The quantitative is just looking at, so let's say you are looking for something and you are counting them. How many times does this information appear on this document, right? So if it appears, you can say yes. If it doesn't appear, you say no, and then you count the yes and the no's. And so we have the quantitative and also the qualitative, and you can combine them too. Thank you. So I think I've already talked about it, but I just want to give you the step-by-step how it's done. So the content analysis, first you have to create a code frame, right? So the code frame is just a list of codes or themes or categories that you're going to use to analyze your data, right? How do you develop that? It's based on an existing knowledge or existing theory that you want to use or existing model, right? So sometimes you can go through the literature. Let's say if you're using a specific model, right? You first have to understand the model, and then based on that, you develop themes, right? And then you use the themes to go through the data and then identify significant information and then connect those significant information to their respective themes, right? So that's all about content analysis. And if I think we will have time for that because I want to demonstrate how you're going to use it. I'm going to give you an example of how to use content analysis very soon. Yeah. So the thematic analysis, as I said, you go through your document, identify relevant excerpts or relevant information, right? And then, but sometimes people are going to ask, so what is relevant information? Relevant information is any information that can address your research question, right? Or that can directly or indirectly address a research question or have something to do with the research question that you are looking at. So you identify significant information. Sometimes you have to interpret it or make sense of it, right? And then you generate codes, right? Codes are just labels that you're going to generate, and then you connect that. And then after generating codes, you go to the next stage, we call it sorting strategy. Sorting is all about categorizing codes based on similarities. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to come up with categories and themes that will help you to address your research question that you have. And I have okay.
I have a question. I'm sorry. You mentioned that the relevant themes are anything that has to do with your research question. If there is a theme that is constant, but not having to do with your research question, should that be coded? So
that's a very good question. I think what you have to do is I always tell students that you can put it under other findings, right? Because you are doing a qualitative study, sometimes there are going to be some important information participants will talk about, or important information that you might see in the document that has nothing to do with your research question, but you want to share because maybe it's going to help your readers or your stakeholders to better understand some issue, right? So although it has nothing to do with the research question, if you think it's going to benefit you or your readers or your stakeholders, I think it's very important for you to, you know, create a node or a code for that and put it under other findings or other issues, right? And maybe you may come back to it later as you are doing the analysis, but it's always good to take note of it, right? Although it's not addressing the research question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Okay, so the next one is the theoretical analysis. So it's just similar to the thematic analysis. You know, you identify significant information, you generate codes and assign them to the excerpt, you sort it, and after sorting, you have to find out the connection between the themes that you found, and then you end up developing a theory, but it's a proposed theory because you have not compared the proposed theory to the data that you have, right? So you have to do, that's why I said constant comparison, comparing the proposed data to a proposed theory to the data that you have and making sure that the data, the proposed theory fits the data that you have, right? So sometimes when you do the comparison, you may have to make an adjustment to the theory, or maybe reject the theory and then maybe start all over again, or create a new one that reflects the data that you have. So that's all about theoretical analysis. So based on best practices, right? So when it comes to, you know, document analysis, you first have to think about your research question. What question do you have to address? The reason why you have to think about your research question, you know, I showed you examples of documents that you could collect. You see that it's a lot. So if you don't have the research question, you'll be all over the place collecting every document that they might have, but it might not have anything to do with your research question that you have. So you have to create a research question and allow the research question to drive how you search and select the relevant document for your analysis. And also you have to select, and the third one is to, you know, select the strategy that you want to use to analyze. And I talk about 3 of them, so you can choose one of them, you know, to analyze your data. And then you have to examine the context surrounding the data, the document. The reason why you have to take a look at the context is that the document wasn't developed for you to maybe do the evaluation. It wasn't developed at a time when you were doing the evaluation. So this means that it wasn't purposely developed for you to evaluate. It was developed as stakeholders are developing the program, or stakeholders were implementing the program. So this means that you have to find out for each of the documents who developed it, in what circumstances, who was it developed for, where was the targeted audience. So you have to ask you all these questions for you to know and better understand the circumstances that cause the development of the document. By doing that, it will help you to, you know, make sense of the significant information well, compared to without, you know, looking at the context. Because in qualitative study, context count. Because the person who developed, their background, their experiences can affect the document. The audience that they are developing the document for can affect even the email. the relationship between the receiver and also the sender can affect how the email is constructed, right? So you have to know all these things to help you to better understand the content of the document. So the fifth one is making meaning, right? And writing down the meaning, because you will go back and think about a code or a label that you want to use to represent that significant information. So you have to write it down, ask yourself, based on the context, what does this statement mean, right? And then you can, interpret it. So I've expanded the last three. So I talk about examining the context. So these are some of the questions that you could ask, and you may not be able to answer everything, but trying to get as much as information that you can get, so that you'll be able to better interpret the significant information. And then you develop code and to represent your interpretation. So if the document that you have is quantitative, this is the tool a free tool that you could use. I think you already know about it. So you can use this free tool to analyze the quantitative data. In terms of the qualitative, you can do it manually, and I'm going to show you how to do the manual analysis. Or you can use a software like Vivo, Atlas TI, and MassQDA. These are the software that you could use. Normally, I think this is useful if you have huge amount of data and different kinds. Some will be emails, some will be program proposals, some will be flyers, all these, it's very difficult for you to manually do all these things. So if having everything in one place and analyzing them will be easy for you. So if you have different types of data, I think one of these resources tool will be good. So this is reference. Let me see the time that I have. I think I have time for the demonstration. So do you have any question before I move to do small, give you a few demonstration of how to use content analysis to analyze the document? So let me pull this one here.
Amy, you have a question?
Yeah, it looks like Amy has a question. I was just getting my, are you able to unmute, Amy? Go ahead and ask away.
Hey, hi.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, thank you for this good information. I'm sorry if I missed it. I don't think I did. But do you have a way that you like to organize your data better as far as like your matrix? Do you prefer Excel or the Google, like the one on Google Drive?
In terms of organizing your data, it depends on the kinds of data that you have. If you have a data like maybe the syllabus that I have here, you can have it on a Word document to do the analysis. If you have different types of data from different sources, I think that you can just use any tool that you think will be easy for you to do the analysis. For me personally, I use Vivo to upload all the documents. The good thing about Vivo is that when you finish doing the analysis, you can also do a metrics to show where the teams are coming from in terms of the source, right? But when you are doing this manual, it's going to be difficult to know where the teams are coming from. So software will always be good. And also, sometimes you want to run some kind of specific kind of words that they use frequently, right? In the document, you can easily run a word analysis to give you a word cloud and see how how frequent specific words are used in the document, you can do it using a software, right? So if the data is not a lot, you can do it manually, but if it's a lot of data, I think that, using the software will be the best.
Okay. Yeah, I started doing it all in Excel. And then one of our classmates just shared a video where it looked, I can't remember what it's called, if anybody else remembers. It looked like Excel, but it was all on Google Drive or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't
So you
tried
could
Google
access
Drive.
that anywhere. Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you for that information. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And yeah, so some, Excel could be used, and I haven't tried Excel, but I always tell students, use a tool that you feel comfortable with, right? So if you feel comfortable using Google Drive or using other software, you just have to find out whether it can do what you expect it to do. And if it's going to do it, yes, you just.
Yeah, thank you. I don't really feel comfortable with anything right now. So
Yeah,
I'm just learning as I go along.
Yeah, because even the software, sometimes you have to go for a little training before you use the software. For in vivo, I have a lot of videos online that you can use to get an understanding. And my book also talks about how to use in vivo. And because, it's about $80 for the software for students, it's good to use a free software if they are available. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that extra insight. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sometimes people think that using the software makes your findings more robust than using it manually. It's not true. The most important thing is the tool helping you to reach your destination. And can you explain to people how you reach your destination? That's all about it. Right.
Okay.
So Philip, there is one more question, but this question may actually be answered in the context of your example, but the question is coming from one of our scientists in the room who's very comfortable with quantitative work. And, she's asking, how do I even know how to code things? I'm used to scientific instrumentation, but I don't, I kind of feel like coding is kind of a secret code I don't really fully understand. So I don't know if you want to answer that in the context of the example that you're going to be providing, or if you want to say something about it at this moment, that would be fine too.
Yeah, I think that that's why I wrote my book. I think, it gives you information about step-by-step guide of how to code data. And it's for people who have no idea about how to do coding, right? Because what I do is that coding is all up. Just think about coding as.
There it is. John's holding it up.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, John.
Look at that.
So coding is. Let me use this example whether it will work for you. So look at. Let's use like you have interview participants, right? And then you got in your transcript, and then you want to make meaning of the transcript to help you to address your research question. Is it the same thing as going to the grocery store or going to Walmart, right? All the things in Walmart, they are transcript, right? And you are not going to buy everything there because you have to buy things that are based on your needs, right? So in analyzing qualitative data, you want to take information that meets the purpose of the study or address your research question. So you go to Walmart and you start picking stuff. Maybe you have a plastic bag, right? You put them in inside, you pick your items. Maybe you pick meat and put in a plastic bag. And then you move somewhere and you say, okay, I think I need a book for my child. You are not going to put the book in where you put the meat, right? You open another plastic bag and put the book in there. So it's all about, coding is all about going through the data, identifying significant information, creating a container, and putting the significant information into the various containers. Right, so you end up having a lot of plastic bag with different kinds of items in it, right? Then you bring it back home and you start sorting, putting them, so sometimes you have to put some items that are related together. So the next stage of an analysis, after creating code, you have to sort them, group them based on similarities. At the end of the day, you come up with themes that are addressing your research question that you have. So I hope this information helps, but if it doesn't, I think, and I sometimes I always tell students, you don't have to buy my book, you just have to go online. I have so many presentations on coding, right? A lot online. That, you know, you type my name.
He has
yes.
plenty. That's actually how we found him. We found all his resources online. So he's got a lot of really great resources. And
Yeah.
Philip also has agreed to kind of share those and package them up for us. So we'll be sending those out as well. Thanks.
Thank you. So let me give you this information. So assuming that you've been asked to analyze a syllabus, right? And then you want to use, and then you have been presented with a model to use to analyze the syllabus, or you've been given a theory to use, right? So it's like looking through the lens of the theory and then use it to make sense of the data that you have, right? So that's that kind of background information I want to give to you. And this one, I followed 11. I hope you have my my document. I think I sent this to Christine.
Yeah, I have everything. So they're going to get it all. I'm going to send it all as a package afterwards.
Okay, thank you. And okay, and then after the conversation, I will send you the updated, because I make a little changes to it. So I'll send it a new so that you forward it to them. Okay, so the first step is to examine the model, the theory you have been given or you have identified to use to analyze the document, right? And then you state your research question, you develop code frame, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. You review the entire syllabus to gain proper understanding of the context. And then you start the coding process. After coding, you have to compile the code and then arrange them alphabetically because you are using, you are doing manual coding. This step will be very important to do, this step 7. And then you tally the codes. I'm going to show you how to do that. And then you bring the codes under their respective themes, and then you engage in critical thinking and free writing, and then you present your findings. So these are the 11 steps that you have to follow if you want to use content analysis for analyzing the document, right? So the first step, so this is just an example. I first created a syllabus, and I just want to find out whether integrated instructional design model, whether the characteristics of the syllabus reflect the integrated instructional design model, right? So what did I do? I first searched for articles that are related to this, and I found an article that talks about it. So first, you have to learn about the model. Without learning about the theory, its components and characteristics, you cannot use it well to analyze your data. So I went online and got an article, and then I was able to get the general information about the model, right? So in terms of integrated instructional design model, the most important thing is that when you are developing a course, you have to incorporate experiential learning, right? We also call it service learning, learning that is related to a real life situation, right? You also have to engage in, you also have to allow your learning objective to drive the analysis, or no, not drive the development of the course, right? So everything should be, all the learning activities should be connected to the learning outcome. And then I also learned about 3 main components. When you are looking at a course, you have to have a clear learning outcomes. You have to, there should be active learning. So students should be well engaged in the learning, and also the assignment should be an engaging assignment, right? And then I also identify 6 elements, right? Students should be able to gain knowledge, should be able to apply the knowledge, should be able to integrate ideas and implement, and also look at the implication of what you have learned, also look at how practical the information, and also acquired how they learn, right? So these are the things that I learned. So as I said, if you are given a model or you're using a model, you have to understand a model before you can use it. Then you have to come up with a research question, right? Sometimes, I don't know of your assignment, if you were not given a research question, you can create a research question that is related to the purpose of the evaluation or the purpose of the analysis that you're doing, right? So I created this research question. So the question is, how do the syllabus features reflect the element of think integrated instructional design model, right? So that's my question that I want to address. The reason why you should have a research question is to drive what you want, what you are looking for, and to also help you to develop themes that are consistent with what you are looking for, right? So, and then the next step is to develop a code frame, right? Or we call it coding scheme. So the code frame is just a list of codes, categories, or themes, right? That are generated from the model that you are using, right? So as you can see, I did a table. I look at the 6 concepts that this model has, right? And based on that, I use the 6 concepts to be the themes, right? So these themes will help me to look for relevant information from the syllabus, right? So when I'm looking for the syllabus, there should be something related to student knowing the content. There should be something related to student applying the knowledge. There should be something related to student integrating the ideas that they have, making inferences, also relating to their real life experience or situation. And also there should be something related to gaining knowledge, right? Or gaining how to learn. So based on this theme, I came up with quotes, right? So the quotes, I generated it based on this theme that I have. So, you know, you have to brainstorm and come up with the quote. As you are coming with the quote, you have to think about the research question. Research question is, you are looking at features in the syllabus. So based on that, I came up with these quotes that reflect, they may reflect features of a good syllabus, right? So I came up with these and we realized that here I wasn't able to come up with anything. I made it such a way that sometimes as you are brainstorming concerning the codes that you want to generate, right? Sometimes you might not know, you have no idea about the kind of codes that may come up. You know, so at that stage, you don't have to force yourself. You just have to leave things alone there, right? And then go through the data and then see what will happen, right? So, but you just have to come up with codes that are consistent with the model at the same time, helping you to address your research question that you have, right? So I came up with this, and then I moved to the next stage where you have to review the entire syllabus, right? So review everything, and then you may be able to address some of these questions, not all, but you know, a question like who developed the syllabus, who qualified to take the syllabus, to take the course, what will be the duration, what's the main learning objective. So these are the questions that you have to get a better understanding about the context of the syllabus. The next stage is to start the coding process. Remember that you have already developed code. So what you're doing is that you are going through the syllabus, identify anything that are related to the codes, and then label, connect that significant information to the codes that you already created. But before that, you have to label your research question, right? So this is my research question. I've labeled it as syllabus features. So it just reminds you that when I'm going through the data, I'm looking up about it, looking for features, right? And the reason why you sometimes have to label your research question is that sometimes you may have more than one research question. So when you are developing codes, because you're going to address each of the research questions, you should organize the code based on the research question, right? So that's why you have to label your research question. You can give it any name. The most important is it could be between 2 and 5 words, right? So this one is just 2 words representing the research question. Then, you know, you have to bear in mind that sometimes as you are going through the data and identifying significant information, there might be a significant information that can address a research question, but you don't have any code for it. You did not create any code for that. So if that's the situation, you create a code for it. So this one, you have to be a little bit flexible. You reach a stage where none of these code can represent the significant information, but the significant information is directly or indirectly addressing the research question. So you always have to be flexible as you are going through the data so that you will not miss very important information that you have to code. So let me see, I think this is not showing well, so let me enlarge it a little bit. Increase, okay. Okay, so is there any question coming before I start the process? Okay, so first I first went through the job, the course description, right? So you can see here that when I was reading the course description, this one just caught my attention, right? So I identify this as one of the significant information because it shows me the information or the content of the course, right? So it's like the structure, okay, I will be introducing you to a unique characteristics of qualitative data analysis and discuss the qualitative data analysis process, right? So this is might be one of the learning outcomes, right? So when I see this one, I connected one of the existing code to it. So you can see that I started by typing. So this is what you do. You select, and then you go to review, and you click on new comment. So you use the comment system to do new comment. And then when you do that, you first have to type the label that you have given to the research question, right? Syllabus features. And then you bring a column, and then you type the node or the code that represents the significant information. So you always have to go back and see which of the node code here can I use to represent the significant information. It looks more of foundational knowledge related to the learning outcome, right? So if you decide, you come here and just put that information there, right? Foundational knowledge related to a learning outcome, right? So now you can see that I have identified significant information. I have indicated the research question that the significant information is addressing. And then I have typed the label, which is the node that I've already created. And I've connected the node or the code to this significant information, right? So that's how you're gonna do. You go through, and if you identify that, oh, this one is significant, then you select it, you go to review, click on here, right? And then first you have to type the label for the research question, and then type the code that you want to use it to represent, right? So that's how I did it for all the thing that information I have here. It's not showing everything. You have to click on it first. So I went through the learning outcome and I connected the codes that are related to that significant information, right? So you can see here the third learning outcome is a knowledge application learning goals, right? Because it's related to how they can apply knowledge. So that's what I did here. And then you can see here, I made here red. The reason why I indicated red here is that this information, which is addressing the research question 1, but the existing code that I've already created cannot represent this, none of them. So you have to create a new code, right? So the new code is a real life related learning goals, right? To represent this one, because I don't have anything here that can be able to represent that significant information. So as you can see here, these are all, look at these as containers, right? I've created containers and then I go through the syllabus, and then if I identify anything that is important to address the research question, then I look for the respective container and drop the significant information into it. Sometimes the existing containers have nothing to do with what you have here, right? It has nothing to do with the significant information you have identified. So you have to create a new one. In order to remind myself that this is a new node, I made that place red, or new code. I made it red, right? So that's how I did it. So I went through, I look at the module description and see whether there's any information that I can drop it into the code that I have. So if I can do that, I just select and then type the information there. I did the same thing for the topics that I'm going to treat, and also the same thing for the materials that I will be giving to students, videos and PowerPoints and chapters. So at the end of the day, the principle is that looking at the containers that you have and thinking about a research question, you go through the document, identify significant information, and then connect them to their respective code. If the existing code has, if the significant information that you have identified has nothing to do with the existing code, you create a new one. And then you indicate red to show to you that it's a new code that you have created. So there are some times where at the end of the day, when you go into each of the containers, you realize that you have several significant information that has been connected, right? And then I'll talk about that. But this is the basic information that you have to be able to analyze data, right?
Philip, there's a question that if you create that new code, should you then create a new container? And if so, like how and when?
Yes, so you create a new container. So the code, look at the code as a container. So you see here, I've created a new container here, right? But you will not go up there to the table to type in the new container. You leave it alone for now. This is an initial container that you created. But as you are going through, you create a new container, and if the new, you just made it red, right? For you to show to you that it's a new one, is different from the existing one. Okay. Then, after you have gone through the syllabus, you go to the next stage, which is compile all codes, right? So you just, and this is a trick that I want to share with you. It's very difficult to select every code here and bring it under here as I have them here. So I don't know of those who use Okay, so I use PC, so I know how to use for the PC, but I don't know of the Mac computer how you're gonna do it. But you can do a try and error. So what I do is, the next stage is to copy all the codes, right, and then compile them and put it down under your under the document, right? So how do you do that? You go to the first code container that you created, or the first code that you created, right? So let's go to the first one. I think it's right here. And then you select that everything here, right? Then you press on your shift key and hold on the shift key and press on down key. Let me see. Will it work now? Is it control? Sometimes it's a little bit tricky.
We've noticed sometimes the features don't always work in Zoom.
Yeah.
That's what we've noticed.
Oh, this now. Okay, let me see whether it will work.
That you're in Zoom.
Yeah. Let me see.
Not always work.
Yeah. Let me bring it to my other screen and see whether it will work. So I think, I don't know why it's not working now, but it will work. Okay, let me do something fast here and just show you. Open a new con. Okay. Okay, let's, I think that, okay, let's assume that these are the comments I've made, right? So I'll make these comments. Oh, it's too small. Okay, let me finish this one. Okay, so I think this one will work. So you select the first one, right? And press on the shift key and then click on the down key, right? So when you click on down key, you click on down key until you go to the last code, right? And all of them will be selected and you right click on one of them and you click on copy. And then you come down here and paste it and all the code will be down, right? I don't know why this one is not working, but this is how I use it. But I think it will work for you. I don't know why now it's not working on this computer. I don't know why. Okay, so this is how I did it. And then when you come down here, I have the list of all the code I've created, right? So I have all the code I've created here, right? And then the next one is arrange them alphabetically. How do you do that? You just copy it, and then you paste it again here, and then select what you have pasted, right? And then you go to home, go to alphabetical, the A, Z, and then click on OK. And then it will arrange it alphabetically for you. Why do you have to do that? Because you don't want to know how many significant information that was dropped into a particular code, right? So you can see that for this code, content record activity, there are it was assigned to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 significant information, right? So the next stage is to compile them. How do you compile them? You just count them. So this is 7, right? So here I type 7, right? And then delete the rest. That to show to you that, okay, I have 7. Here is only 1, right? It appeared only 1. So I type 1. Here it appeared 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in parentheses, you say 6, and then you delete the rest, right? So you do that, you do it as until you reach the last stage. So as you can see here, that's what I got. What does it mean? It means that for this significant, code, 7 significant information was assigned to this code, right? So this significant information, we call it code count, right? So 7 code counts, 1 code count for this one, 6, right? For this one, 3, and then the rest, right? So what is the next stage? You go back to the table that you created, right? And then bring these, it's just like sorting. You are bringing these under their respective themes, right? You bring the code under there. So you see the foundational knowledge related to learning outcome, and then you indicate the the number of significant information with the code count, indicate them here, and you bring it. So just as you have that table up there, right, it's the same way that you're going to, so you see the foundational knowledge, right? So you're just bringing them to their respective themes, right? And then the ones that are red, you decide where they should belong. So you can see that the content recognition related learning outcome is related to this one, right? I think it's related to, so the ones in red, you bring it where they belong. I don't know whether I'm making sense. Mm-hmm. And you know, you can ask questions if I'm not making sense.
Well, it makes
I'll be
sense.
happy to.
I mean, it's just essentially you develop the rules, and then you put it in a format that way you can then sort them, and then you count. It's a way to represent the output, if you will, from all of the that you just kind of by looking at the document. So
yes. Thank you.
And this is when you're taking those new categories and figuring out where they have a home, right? So those new.
Yes. Yes, where they have home. And you can see, you see how you have 13 here. So you just add them up and then bring it here, you add, bring it on top. So the numbers here will is just giving you information about how many significant information are related to this theme. Right.
So if I could, I mean, so Martine referenced the next assignment for the class. So we're asking you to look at find 3 syllabi, right, syllabus, and determine what evidence the theory is the andrological process model. So you're going to look at that based on the articles, right? You're going to pull out what the major themes are, and then you're going to go through the exact process that Philip just described, and then you're just going to do it as a 1-page kind of summary, and what you write up maybe a paragraph or so of how you see that document, the data supporting that it's addressing it or not, and to what degree.
Yes, that's how they can go through that.
And I would just add that, you know, looking at this last chart, Philip, you know, your first question, I believe the research question was something to the nature of, you know, is the syllabi using Fink's model? Well, in part, yes, there's a couple of areas where I think you have some pretty significant evidence, but in part, no, you know, I think that there's a lack of evidence in some of those other pieces. So your summary data then, you know, would have to turn into a narrative kind of telling that story where you're backing it up with, you know, well, there were 13 pieces of evidence related to the knowledge part, but when you get all the way over to relate to real life situations, there really was only one piece of evidence from the syllabus that indicated that. Now, it might be that it was a strong part of the syllabus, you know, it's not always quantitative only, but I think that is part of what the students will need to do is to make some of those judgment calls based on that.
Yes, so you have really summarized the next step where you have to use some kind of critical thinking and a free writing. So the critical thinking is, so looking at this, as you said, you said it perfectly. You can see that the syllabus lacks some of the main elements, right? And have some, so based on that, you just look at it and that's, you know, write any good idea that comes into mind. Here it's free writing because this is a time for you. Don't worry about whether you are making sense or not. You just have to put everything down because you're going to come back to that information and then, you know, make it better, right? So just as you are thinking through what you have gotten, right, you have found, you always have to, you know, we call it memory, right? Write down your reflections, right? Because great information comes in mind and then dissipate. So you have to document the process as you are going through and say, okay, you know, looking at these features, you know, I think, you know, based on the model, you realize that the course lack a lot of features, main features concerning the model that, you know, you can make some conclusion concerning that, right? So, and this one will help maybe the person who developed the course, which is me, to go back again and, and realize that I have to make major changes to the course, right? Because it's not reflecting the this model, right? So you see how this analysis will help. It just look at like evaluation, right? Based on this analysis, and if you show this one to your stakeholders, they will believe what you found and they will use your findings because you have shown them how you came into conclusion that this course is not achieving the goal that we set for, right? And that's why you have to be systematic as you are going through the document and document everything in the process. So you do, you know, these are the questions that you might ask yourself as you are going through the results, right? And then you start, you know, you present your findings. Findings is all about, you know, first you give a descriptive information about the document. So in your case, you are using about 3 syllabi, right? You describe, give a, just similar to if you interview participants, right? And people are going to ask you, who did you interview? You say, okay, oh, there were 12 males and 5 females, you know, the same kind of description. You can also give similar thing to the document that you are looking at, right? What kind of course? How many modules? What is the duration? How many credit hours? People want to know a brief information about the document that you analyze. Then you move to the next stage where you present step-by-step process. How did you analyze this document, right? The same thing I've provided to you up there, that's how you're gonna describe so that people will believe what you found. And then the last one is to present your findings based on the research question that you have. So you have to present it to address the research question. And this is where your reflection comes handy because it has all the good ingredients that you can use to, you know, talk about your themes and why some of the features that are lacking and what can be done to improve and, you know, and in addressing the research question. So this is what I have for you. And when you get this document, I have resources. It gives you, there's examples about how content analysis is used, and I think you'll be able to use these resources to help you to do your analysis. Yeah.
So if there was one last question, at least I see, is there a number like that you need in terms of minimum points of evidence? So like if you had 5 at least in a category, would that be considered successful or, you know, high enough, or is this just completely a judgment call?
Yeah, I think that, you know, in terms of document analysis, there's a principle that the higher the frequency or the number of counts, right, the more likely the information is important, right? So if you look at this, you see 24 here, I can say that most of the information in the syllabus focus on applying knowledge, right? Has nothing to do with making inference. It has a little bit of, you know, relating their learning activities to the real life situation. There's no information about how they are, you know, understanding their learning style and gaining knowledge about how they learn. And there's few information about integrating of life. So the numbers will help you to see how dominant the information or the theme is, right? So that's how you're gonna, but I always tell students that you shouldn't dwell too much on the numbers, right? But it's just another way to tell you that, okay, this information is important or dominant, right? So. Any other question? I've gone beyond my time. I'm sorry about
Oh,
that.
that's okay. Philip, this was excellent.
I
Thank
think
you
you
so
provided
much.
a great overview, both of document analysis and then also helping our students as they prepare for this next assignment. So
Mhm.
I think it was very, in my mind anyway, very clear and methodological, you know. And now, obviously, once we distribute the supporting documentation that you provided, and then for those students that weren't able to get on the call, obviously they'll be able to see the video. And for those of you that are still on the call, if you're not sure, you can go back and review certain sections of this to help clarify.
Thank you. And also, if you want to contact me, this is my information. And as I said, you can follow me on LinkedIn and you get all the information. I have a lot of PowerPoints. When you go to SlideShare, you can even type SlideShare and type my name, Philip Adu. You can get all the information that you need in terms of qualitative research, mixed method research, and other things that you want to know. Right.
And this is only one of a series of webinar sessions that we have.
Yes, I'm coming next week Tuesday, and I think it's going to be very interesting because I'm going to talk about analyzing data, right? The coding, how to make
more
sense
details
of data.
on the coding process.
Yes.
So I think that people will find that very helpful. So, well, thank you again. Phil, we really appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us. And thank you to all of the students who were able to join. One last call. Anybody have a question for Philip before we end for today? All right. I'm going to stop recording then. Thanks again, Philip.
Thank you. And bye for now. Bye, everyone.
Bye now.